Faster than a fraudulent performance measure, stronger than a misplaced decimal point, able to leap complex compliance requirements in a single bound. It's Super Auditor! Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Auditors Save the World, one audit project at a time, where we bring you thrilling tales of daring audits and brave financial reviews. Here, our heroes don't wear capes, but they do wield the power of empirical evidence. Brought to you by the pros at Yellowbook-CPE. In each episode, we interview those legendary auditors who have truly rescued the day. Stay tuned, listeners, because this is one story you won't want to miss. And folks, don't forget to subscribe to our show in your podcast app of choice. And now, here's your host, Lita Hart-Fanta.
When deadlines loom and audit backlogs threaten to swallow your entire audit team, when there's no way you can get the job done yourself, there's one name you can call: Tiffany. Yes, Tiffany, the internal auditor for hire, the powerhouse partner of public purpose. With her decades of experience and unstoppable drive, she steps in when others step back, delivering insight, integrity, and impact every single time. She's the master of relationships, turning clients into allies and audits into opportunities for collaboration. Tiffany reminds us that curiosity is a compass, pointing auditors toward new subjects, new challenges, and the ever-widening world of government accountability. For her, every audit is more than a checklist. It's a chance to understand how and why our governments make the choices they do. Because Tiffany believes that insight is patriotic and that good government depends on good auditors. And when the going gets tough, she reminds her colleagues to network, to stay curious, and to never forget the noble mission that drew them to the profession in the first place.
So I am a manager with the Bekaert public accounting firm. And so I work on the government public sector team and the internal audit practice and forensics.
Oh, fun.
And so prior to joining CB, I actually worked for Baker Tilly, which is a larger public accounting firm, in the government public sector practice as well. And so that's been essentially the bulk of my career, because prior to that, I'm in Chicago. And so I worked for a state agency here in Chicago.
Oh, okay.
And so I basically spent my whole career working in the public sector or for the public sector.
Oh, that is so great.
I was going to say, I've had the great opportunity to work with state, county, at the city, county, state levels all across the country. I've had clients literally from California to Pennsylvania. So it's been a great opportunity just to see the climate of government and to work with a mission set in mind, where I have value for supporting agencies that have programs that have like really good values and missions and goals and objectives, from everything to, creating jobs through building up of infrastructure here in Illinois, all the way to, programs to help communities that are devastated by natural disasters rebuild their homes. So it's definitely been fun. There have been challenges, but it's been fun and exciting just to understand more how government works and really what the key to their foundation is to support the people.
Yeah, it's so fulfilling, right, to work with government rather than just pursuing profit.
Correct. Yes.
To really know that, when there's a disaster, government's there. I love that. So you get that mission, you get that feeling. Did you have a particular audit that you wanted to talk about?
I don't think I have one specific audit, but again, I do internal audit work and forensics.
Yeah.
And so I think if there are specific questions that you have that I could probably pull from different engagements that I find to be interesting.
Tell us more about your forensics work. That sounds different than what I usually talk about.
Yeah. So we have a number of different support services in the forensics area. And so typically when we're working with clients, sometimes they come to us, in most cases, after the fact, when, they've received a tip or they stumbled upon some sort of information where, makes them kind of wonder, I'm not sure if this is quite right. And so, they sought out our support to help just determine, essentially start by telling us what they found and determine potentially what additional questions they should ask or what they should be looking for. And so we serve as a support to either help support and walk along with them while they do their own internal review. And if they don't have the capacity or the expertise, we're able to quickly pull together a team based on the nature of the issues to essentially take that investigation on for them and then report back in whatever their preferred method is.
Okay. Well, what's one of your recent examples that you've worked on?
I have a few right now. I'd say the past few months, I've had maybe two. One was in a lot of cases, it's funny how similar issues can be across different even levels of government. And so from a financial perspective, typically sometimes there are instances where the client has run out of money and they don't understand how they ran out of money when they still have
Mm.
objectives within the program that need to be accomplished.
Mhm.
And so we come in to do a review to essentially follow the money, see where it went, if it was used efficiently, or if there were opportunities of maybe abuse or even just
Right.
waste.
Right.
And from the aspect of waste, it could be waste because they just have a lack of governance and structure and mission to
Mhm.
begin with, which means they're kind of running around just trying to put out fires, depending on the nature of the funds and what the service is, or just because they don't have the proper infrastructure and there was that lack of initial planning to help them operate more smoothly throughout the duration of the program, if it's a program.
So are you looking at is this mostly cities, not-for-profits, or these people that have experienced disasters?
It could be anything. We have cities, counties. Sometimes
Mhm.
what we see a lot with counties are, again, the budget issue where they're needing to request more money because they're not able to execute or operate completely. Or there are instances where there are specific programs that they've been tasked to accomplish, and they may not be a part of their normal operations, but some event has occurred or some new legislation has come out, and now there's a new mission and a new goal. And so they need to help support that. And so there may not have been the opportunity to be most thoughtful with planning. There's also instances where if you're thinking more like fraud or abuse, you just have a lack of controls sufficient enough
Mhm.
to to prevent or detect fraud, or the circumvention of internal controls by those that have the access to do so, the opportunity to do so. And so it could be a variety of different root causes to start with, but we definitely see similarities irrespective to the level of government. So if it's a city, a county, a state agency, etc.
The similarities are that they do not have controls. They are not, governing the program. Are those the similarities?
Yes, it could be that they don't have proper governance structure. And we know obviously governments are, to your point, not operating with the intention of making profit. So, resources are limited and, they're not unlimited. And so there's not always, you have to do, the general consensus is that you are trying to do more with less all the time, and that you are to be efficient with your resources. A lot of times these are public funds that are using to support these endeavors. And so that definitely plays a role as a
Yeah.
theme.
Do you have a specific instance where you feel like you made a big difference that you can mention, like, this is a county, this is a state, this is a federal entity? Do you have something you could tell us, a
Mhm.
story that where you feel like you made a big difference?
Yes, I would say I have an example. This is a client I worked with in the past 1 to 2 years, where they were a smaller organization that served an area, a tropical area in the United States. And we did a vendor review. So based on the services they were providing to the residents and visitors and things, they had a number of vendors that have been longstanding vendors that have been providing them services. And just given the lack of turnover and the fact that they were a smaller organization with a bit less maybe regulatory oversight, their internal controls were not as strong. And so we were able to identify some instances of conflicts of interest and waste based on our evaluation. And so we provided essentially, based on the results of our engagement, we provided a bevy of recommendations for them and essentially created a roadmap that they could use to implement to essentially do a complete overhaul of the organization from beginning to end. And so at a high level, our recommendations were to start with governance. So that would be key positions that can help support, operations throughout the organization, ensuring that they had internal controls embedded in their policies and procedures, and they had adequate training to actually execute those procedures in a repeatable manner with some additional accountability. And then we transitioned into, okay, once you have, who's essentially responsible, and they have clear guidelines for what they should be doing. They have a better understanding of what resources they need to do so. You can kind of move into working on implementing controls or implementing our recommendations that would be better suited for a more mature organization, because just depending on the maturity of the organization and the maturity of the internal controls, there are some things that are easier to implement than others. And you first need to, get some foundational things in place and become familiar with that and get that essentially churning and working fairly smoothly. And then you can start to focus on things that would be more for a more mature organization or more innovative, more forward thinking, looking to the future, once your current state is a little more stable.
And now, a word from our sponsor. Today's episode is brought to you by Yellowbook-CPE, the heroes behind the jumbo bundle of self-study courses. With a 1-year subscription, you get access to over 180 hours of top-notch CPE content. Dive into thrilling tales of agile, IT auditing, fraud, and internal controls. All courses carry NASBA's quality seal, so you know they've got the superpower of trustworthiness. Just click the link in the description to sign up. And now, back to our story.
I know you cannot tell me specific clients. I know you can't tell me specific areas of waste. Is that true that you could not?
I can give more specifics on areas of waste.
Okay.
So a common theme of potential areas of waste that I've found across multiple clients, and this is a big area we always recommend around vendor management and third-party providers.
Yes.
And so this is an area where a lot of organizations take the posture that if it's outsourced to a vendor, we're expecting them to kind of manage it and handle it, and they're responsible. And so management, in some cases, takes a more hands-off approach. And so we see that with vendors, just for example, that are providing system support, or they're working you have third-party providers with, let's say, disaster recovery efforts or, backups, things of that nature, where they're obviously the vendors coming in as the expert, and they have, the knowledge and they have the bandwidth and capacity to support those processes. However, what we've always had to reiterate across many, many clients that I've worked with is that just because the vendor has been hired to actually execute this operationally, you still have to have oversight and monitoring of them.
Mm.
And so in some cases, there have been instances where the vendors are in part they would say they are doing their job. But if you actually get down to the nitty gritty of monitoring the contract from beginning to end, there's an overall lack of documentation or support that what the vendors require to do is actually being delivered in a quality manner on time.
Mm.
And so what we find with a lot of recommendations is that we always end up recommending that general vendor management oversight those processes be reviewed, because they're within the client or the agency, there is a key person that is responsible for essentially holding that vendor accountable. monitoring them, having regular statuses, making sure that if they're experiencing issues or they have incidents, that the vendor is responsive and actually helping them resolve that. And they fully if it's a system, for example, they fully understand how to use that system. The system is operating and is configured in a way that's functionally going to support their operations and what they need.
Yeah.
And then in instances not performing properly, we see in a lot of cases there's a general lack of like termination or offboarding or recourse, that the client has included those provisions within their contracts and will actually take the actions to hold them accountable if the quality is not what it needs to be. And so that's a big area where waste can go sort of undetected or unchecked in a lot of cases. Additionally, segregation of duties is really important. And in a lot of cases, when you're thinking more financially in terms of financial related processes, what we see is that a lot of cases, segregations of duties, given the governments, again, they're small, they don't have unlimited resources. And so sometimes you have the same person wearing multiple hats and completing multiple functions, where you should technically have a segregation of duties where, for example, just the person that inputs should not be the person that's reviewing, should not be the person that's approving or has final sign off. Like those should be completed by different folks within the organization, and they just don't have the bandwidth or even the knowledge to know that that should be in place.
Right.
And so that's another area where it's not necessarily waste of resources, but it can just open the door for the potential for fraud just because the internal controls are less mature.
Yeah. Yeah. How long did you say you've been doing this kind of work?
About 15 years.
Like you said, you see similar things over and over and over again.
Yes.
And then does your firm ever just tell a client, hey, you're too risky for us?
We do.
Oh, tell me what pushes you guys over the edge where you're like, we've asked you to do this, you did not do it. Tell me how you filter out clients.
That happens sometimes before the engagement has started, but also it can happen while the engagement has started. Yes.
Okay.
Well, in the midst of it. And so we're obviously, when we want to work with everyone. However, we want the client to think that we are the best firm and we have the best resources and the best expertise, because we do. But also, from a client perspective, we have to do a risk assessment as well, because we want to make sure that we are working with clients that need us, but also want us to be there. It's incredibly challenging to be able to add value or make recommendations to a client that's not exactly receptive to our participation.
Right.
And they see us not as a value architect or a strategic partner, but more of a hostile gotcha sort of organization. And so we have to create a profile in our potential clients as well, to say, okay, well, just based on what we're able to glean, the information we're able to obtain, is this client going to be someone that we actually can work with? Because the worst thing you can do is accept a client and then not be able to deliver valuable results for them. And that would be due to our resources or due to their internal resources, either way. And so that is the risk assessment that we do when we're even thinking about proposing.
What are some indicators that they, even ahead of time, that they are not going to do what you ask them to do? They're not asking to do, but advise them to do. What are some indicators?
So to a degree, I would say, me personally, and this is not from my firm's perspective, but my experience has been, you can tell to a degree, for example, when you go into a scoping call with a client, just based on who you're speaking to, they're feelers for, when you ask for certain information to even just gain a better insight on how to come up with your objectives for the engagement, are they able to provide you with the information you need? In some cases, they are. In some cases, they are not. That's an indicator on how difficult it might be or challenging it might be to obtain information, as well as their availability. We all know everybody has a full-time job already. And so when audit comes in, that's a part of it, but it can create obviously additional pressure. And so we always like to ask, what's the best timing for this? Sometimes it's mandated based on a law or regulation, and so it just has to be done.
Sure.
But in some cases, there's flexibility to when they're able to actually help support us with executing the engagement during times of the year that are less busy for them or maybe hectic for them. And so we always try to talk through that with them. When are your crazy busy seasons, if there is flexibility, so that we can work with their schedules just to make it easier on everyone.
Okay, so mostly it's about you're talking to them and you say, "Do you have a record of this?" And they go, "I've never thought about that."
Yes.
Is that kind of like,
Yeah.
"Oh."
Yes.
And then it's that kind of thing?
We can talk to them. And also you can tell additionally, and just after being an auditor for such a long time, you can read, other auditors' findings and recommendations.
Yeah.
And it helps you glean a lot for maybe the state of that area.
Yeah.
So obviously considering other engagements, even if you're not relying on the work of other engagements, just to gain an understanding of the outcomes of those engagements, help provide insight as well.
Yeah. So I did notice I worked with Deloitte for a while, and I noticed that they are moving away from auditing and more into advisory services and helping people comply.
Okay.
Because auditing is a little, there's a lot of regulations you got to follow, a lot of standards, a lot of risk. Your firm does both as well, right? Auditing and support services.
Yes. Yes.
Would you say in your role you're mostly auditing or you're mostly
auditing?
Mostly auditing, okay. So are you doing the single audit or are you
No,
doing
so my specialty is internal audit. So
Yes.
all things internal audit
Right.
and forensics, of course. And so best case, for us, it is the best case in instances where we have the opportunity to start at the ground at the beginning with the risk assessment. So when the client decides they're going to, pursue beefing up their internal audit reviews and things.
Oh, so you're doing the global risk assessment for the entire
Yes. Enterprise-wide. Yes.
Oh, okay. So you are acting as the internal auditor for these smaller entities. So you're doing the annual planning with them, the global risk assessment, helping
Yes.
decide where to go, and then
Correct.
implementing. And you might be a supplement to their already existing internal auditor, or you might be the entire internal auditor.
Correct. I have clients for both directions. Yes.
Okay, gotcha. You get to see all kinds of stuff.
Yes. And I do, in my career, when I initially started out, I did not realize that internal audit I was going to be so passionate about it. It was like a natural progression of actually working. When I was working in government, I was in finance, compliance, and IT functions.
Yeah.
And then naturally decided that I wanted an opportunity to expand my visibility across the organization. And so I started just to become involved with like the IIA and
Right.
the AGA.
Right.
And then from there, I realized, internal audit would give me the opportunity to be independent,
Yes.
to see how the different departments within the organization work together, and to be able to add value by identifying potentially like missed opportunities or inefficiencies, to be able to provide recommendations to help
Yeah.
each department and enterprise why everyone achieve their organizational mission.
Yeah. What does your ideal client look like? What is like you're like, "Ooh."
It's always going to be a client where essentially they sought us out,
Mm.
because in that case, I know they actually want us to be there and they're actually looking
Okay.
for valuable recommendations. It's very interesting when you think about the spectrum of the types of responses or the way we're received when you are working with a client that thinks you can help them add value.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just when you think through the interviews, every audit, there's some form of interviews, surveying,
Yeah.
walkthroughs, where we take the opportunity to get to know a better understanding of the in-scope processes. And so it's amazing when you get into some of the meetings and you're talking through what that respective person's responsible for, and you start asking them questions like, do you have adequate systems? Do you have adequate people? Do you have policies and procedures, clear directions? Do you understand how your role in the organization helps support the overall agency's mission? And in some cases, those walkthroughs and interviews, when you leave them, you really feel like you were in a therapy session, because it's true. You actually feel like, "Oh, this person has been holding this in for a long time, and now someone independent that, is
Yeah.
not like, maybe they tried to communicate it before and they don't feel that they were heard or well received or there
Right.
were no results. They feel like, "Oh, this independent person is coming in to help, and maybe they can help me get what I really need to be able to do my job well and have less pain
Right.
points." And so it's almost like with therapists, we're there to listen and understand what the current state is so that we can make hopefully valuable recommendations to get to the future state, their desired state.
That's beautiful. That's really nice. I love that. Well, what would you advise a young auditor career-wise? What kind of advice would you give? Like, say someone you just hired them on your team, they were working in IT or something, and you got them on your team. What advice would you give them?
I would say if it's a young auditor, because some people earlier in their career, they just really know what they want to do.
Yep.
And then others over the years and years and years, things progress and there are transitions and they're introduced to something different and they realize, oh, I didn't know that this might be of interest to me. And hey, I'm pretty good at this.
Yeah.
This is great. It wasn't initially what they started out planning to do. I would advise them to just stay curious because the benefit of internal audit, again, is that we cover the entire organization. And so I have a range of clients where we're brought in to focus on specific areas, whether it be financial area, it could be human resources, it could be IT, it could be legal. And then I have some clients where we're tasked with covering the whole organization, every department under the umbrella of the organization. And so in those cases, either case, you have an opportunity to explore something different, a different process area or functional area or department. Take that opportunity to learn to see if there's something of interest to you in there because you still have time to decide what you want your specialty to be, down the road.
And why did you choose government? I know you said you worked in government
Mhm.
when you got out of school.
Is a natural progression. So I didn't know I don't think choosing government auditing was I don't know if it was an active choice. I was already in government.
Yeah.
And so once I realized again that internal audit was an opportunity to not do more routine tasks every month, the same thing, I was like, okay, this is an opportunity for me to see the whole organization. And obviously I had the number of years in government. And so I understood how government worked.
Mhm.
And so then I had an opportunity to switch to a public accounting firm, Baker Tilly, and I get to work with multiple governments. And so I get to see like all, and then I realized even just with working with cities or counties, the amount of the different types of projects that were coming my way even just gave me a better understanding of how the city I lived in operated.
Isn't that fun to know?
Yes, yes. So to understand, permitting and the taxes and just the different departments within the organization, the water and utilities and things like that. It was fascinating to me. I've had the cool opportunity to sometimes I do IT general controls reviews, and so I've had the opportunity to visit different utilities all over the country and to actually go into their data centers and, check out their physical and environmental controls. And it's just really cool to actually go in places and buildings that I can't count the number of data centers I've toured. It's just really cool of an
And
experience.
where they put them and how
Yes.
they guard them. Yeah, I remember, when I was a student at the University of Texas, somehow I got in the data center, which was located in this beautiful stairwell underneath the tower, and I'm like, "What's" you never thought anything was going on down there,
Yes.
but there it was. That's fun. So you have a lot of
Mhm.
insight into how government works, and government's so complex.
Mhm. It is.
Like, a city does so many different things, it's amazing.
A lot of it operations, and then you have the consideration for clearly the residents, the public,
Yeah.
and then there's the consideration for, politics, the political environment,
Oh,
what they're
yeah.
mandated to do, the statutes that they have to keep up with. That adds a layer of complexity, and so that's been something that I really enjoyed while being a cherry, is just the different types of clients here and just gaining a better understanding of just the different, even external pressures
Yeah.
that are being imposed depending on the type of entity it is.
Yeah. And do you find, I've been having conversations around this the past couple of days, that it's hard to find staff to help with this because they are more attracted to working with Tesla or anything like that? Do you find that that's hard to draw
think
people
that-
into your team?
Yeah, I think it's not maybe not a niche, but almost like a niche market. Government, people
is
that
niche,
actually are
yeah.
interested in supporting governments and evaluating governments. And what I found is that in a lot of cases, the people that end up being on your teams sometimes are people that actually worked in government. So it's like they had to know about government first or have some sort of tie to government
I
before
see.
they determined,
Okay.
okay, now I want to audit government. Or I want
Okay.
to do
Okay.
advisory recommendations to government.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
don't have, because even myself with my education, government auditing, internal auditing was not promoted in undergrad. It was all about become a CPA, go
Right.
to a Big Four.
Right.
And
Right.
so that was the push. And so I think that even maybe today is still the push. And so it's more popular.
It is still the push. And they took government off the CPA exam,
Mhm. So yeah,
even less of an emphasis. But you're not having a hard time getting people to join you. It doesn't sound like.
no, we're doing all
Yeah.
right.
That's great. That's great. Well, anything else you want to tell our listeners today?
Yeah, I would say that if you're in government or supporting government, especially from an internal audit perspective, kudos to you. And if you're looking for potential career pivots that would be incredibly fulfilling, because again, all of my clients are mission based. And so whether it's a school district, a university, a utility, a water authority or
Mhm.
anything like that, it's all mission based and you're actually serving people. And so the results of your audit findings and recommendations are all for hopefully the betterment of those customers or those
Right.
neighbors.
Right.
And once you're looking at, especially if it's a city or a county or a fire department, you can, if you've had the opportunity to go inside the organization and look at their operations and see, what they've got going on in terms of controls or performance, you can actually see how that impacts your own life in your own city.
Yeah. I had a conversation with the city auditor of Austin, and we had a nice discussion about bike lanes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, which are this ongoing issue, but I got some insight into that. So that was really fun because she knows. So you know stuff.
Yes, I've seen.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Well, thank you so much for being with us, Tiffany. This was great.
Yes, thank you for having me. It was definitely a pleasure.
You're so good. I appreciate you.
Yeah, anytime.
Thank you, brave listeners, for joining us on this adventure. We appreciate your loyalty. Take a moment to subscribe and share this podcast with all your audit allies. And don't miss out on Yellowbook-CPE's upcoming webinars. Because every superhero needs their training, and Yellowbook-CPE offers continuing education that's relevant, convenient, and as thrilling as the fight for justice. Until next time, audit on!